Hi, I'm Pete with DekTek Tile. We're here in Minnesota. We're out on a homeowner's deck. He's got the construction already underway, and I wanted to point out a couple things that a homeowner needs to look at, or contractor needs to look at, before you decide to start building.
So when you're building a new deck, you absolutely need to make sure you check with your state and local codes to find out how deep you need to build your foundation to make sure that you're below the frost level, and also what size it needs to be this way to hold the weight. Now, if you build a foundation like this and it's above the frost level, the frost will get under it and it'll heave it, and it'll actually kind of ruin your deck.
Well, the next thing you need to look at is how good a condition is the wood in. Is it rotting anywhere? Is it in super good condition? Will it last another 30 years is the big question. To assess your wood's condition, we're looking up here at these joists, and for the most part they look pretty good, except if you can see this, it has a dark area, and there's a dark area over there. We don't know if there's stains or if there's actually rot, so take a hammer and feel how soft your regular wood is, and then do it on that area too. And if it's just as good, then it should be good. This isn't rotted out, it's just a water stain. So if you have wood in good condition like this homeowner has, these are just fine, and the existing joists above are in good condition, so he decided to reuse those. So the next thing that you need to do is figure out what type of installation you're going to put on your deck. In other words, are you going to use the sister joist method, which are these sister joists up here, or are you going to use the sleeper method, which is laying a 2x4 laterally on top of your joist? And the homeowner here chose to use the sister joists because his existing deck is too close to his door sill, and if he added an 1.5-inch sleeper on top, it would make it too high. So he was forced to use the sister joist method, so that you're going to be able to set your tile, and one side of the tile is going to bear on a full 2x4 instead of splitting the main joist. Here's the main 2x10 sister joist, and here's the 2x4 sister joist. He's got about a 3/8 inch of a spacer in there, and then he screwed the sister onto that. And you can actually have this anywhere from 1/4 to 3/4 inch gap. But just keep in mind, if you go a 3/4 inch gap, you've got to have quite a bit longer screw. So anyway, we have that gap so that the joist doesn't rot, and plus it helps aid in the water runoff between the tiles. And now we're over here on the new part of his deck, and I just wanted to point out that he's using the sister joist method on the new part as well as the old part, just so it's all the same. And as you see up here, you can see he added a 2x4 sister to each 2x10 main joist with the spacers in between. When you build a deck, you need to have the proper structure underneath it. And you can use your lumber company or an engineer or an architect to help out with that. A lot of times your lumber company will help you with spans, but as you see up here, he's got a full 18-19 foot width from the house to the edge of the deck. You can't just use one set of beams like this or this and post. That's way too far a span, and you would have a very trampoline type deck, which you don't want. So he's got like a 19-foot span from the house out to the edge of the deck. So he has a second row of posts, foundations, and beams in the middle of the deck to hold this. And here's the last row, and you can see that he's actually cantilevering out a couple feet past that. But anyway, when you build your deck, make sure that you have the proper amount of beams and structure underneath it to hold it and have it be a sturdy deck. So when planning your framing and your structure, it's a pretty good idea to plan a cantilever like this. Because what it does is it lessens the span going to the house so that there's less flex. And you can plan the cantilever. It looks like this one's about 1.5 feet. You could go up to 2 feet probably. You don't want to be too long where it flexes out here. But it just helps out with more structural support by planning a cantilever. So also, last but not least, when you put your plate onto your house, this has been the source of quite a few deck failures across the US, that it's not fastened good enough to hold the deck up, and actually had people fall and injure or kill themselves. So when you put your plate on, make sure that you fasten the heck out of it to make sure that it's structurally sound. And when you're using our product, you need to have your lumber company or engineer tell you how many fasteners you need to put into here and what size of fastener. Of course, that depends on what you're fastening it into on the house. Anyway, you can see he's got some really hefty lags going in here, one per section. But I just need you to check your local code on that and make sure that you're following your code. So we're talking about framing the main frame of the deck. And the homeowner here was wondering if he had to put in the blocking in the deck that goes every 4 feet. We put blocking between here, and what that does is it helps keep the main joist from twisting. And the answer is yes, you must put those in, because the tile get adhesively applied and there's not enough force holding the frame together, and if you get too long of a span, that frame can move and twist and cause a failure. So yes, you do need to put the blocking in every 4 feet. And I'm going to build one right here just to show you what I'm talking about. So when installing your wood blocking, that's your lateral bracing that's going this way between joists. We notched this one out so that it would encompass the sister joist. But when installing those, we require that they be put on a maximum of 4 foot on center. So he has a 18, 19 foot span here. So it's going to require 3 rows of these in here. And just to show you how it goes, we cut out for the 2x4 plus the 3/8 gap. And you're going to mark where you want the whole line. And then you're going to cut it in, put it in place. Like that. Make sure it's not sticking out on top to hold your tiles out of place. Set it level, and then you can use your nail gun or screws to nail it into here or to angle it into there. Anyway, you're going to do the whole line, and that's going to brace these together, keep them from twisting, keep them from moving side to side. And it is required that you do a full line of those, maximum 4 foot on center, running this way with your deck. So the next thing will be is planning your tile layout. Now this is a very important step, because if you plan your tile layout well, you'll have a very nice looking deck and you won't end up with little narrow cut pieces. Once in a while you can't help but run into really narrow pieces, but you can see the design on this. The homeowner has chose to use the running bond or brick pattern. And in other words, he's staggering. So as you see, he's putting a full tile there and then a half. Now when you get to this side, this is his existing deck, and this was already in place. So he wasn't able to expand this and make it work out perfect, which is just fine, you don't need to. So when he gets over here, he's going to end up cutting a piece that's about 13.5 inches wide, which is fine. And then he's going to be cutting another piece that is little more than 4.5 inches, and that's fine too. We just want to keep from getting little 1-2 inch strips if possible, because it doesn't look too good. Also, when you do install pieces less than 10 inches, we highly recommend that you use an extra piece of blocking, a treated 2x, and you can see this is going to have a little 4-inch piece. So you need to nail in some support. And this is going to be knocked down flush. I just don't have a hammer here. And then you're going to nail that in or screw it. And that's going to help support that narrow piece. When you get less than 10 inches of tile, it starts losing its structural strength and doesn't have the ability to hold the weight of a human. And that's why you need these in place for those smaller pieces. So I want to show you an optional trim board. We got a piece of composite here that he's putting against the house. And we're going to start the tile right here. And I want to say that's optional, because you could run the tile all the way into the house. Some people put this in for the visual look of the framing look, which is very nice. doesn't have to be there. So when you plan out your tile spacing, your framing is very important on where the tile go. And when you come to the edge, you have to make sure that you have enough framing to hold your 5-inch or 5.5-inch piece of composite and still have a full 2x here to start your tile on. And the homeowner here chose to use a piece that's about 12 inches wide, and that's visually pleasing because it's a larger piece, which is good. If you were to do a piece 4 or 5 inches, it not only doesn't look as good, then you got to add in your extra bracing underneath it, so it's actually a little less work to plan it wider. So another thing that can happen on some decks is the homeowner's existing deck, the joists run this way, as you can see, and he's using the running bond pattern so that when he gets over here, you can see that the joist's running this way, it's not going to match. But all you need to do is add a piece of composite in the middle like he did here, and wherever those joints come here don't matter, and start here, it'll look visually pleasing. So in planning for your tile layout, when you get to a larger area, there's 2 different ways of doing it, and I'm going to explain both ways. The homeowner here has measured this, and he knows that our tiles are 16 inches. He's planned it to go all the way from there to way over there, and the last piece of tile will have probably 1 inch or 2 cut off of it. And that works well to have a large piece of tile cut like that. The only thing that you don't want to do is go all the way from there over there and have to cut a 3/4 inch piece or a 2-inch piece even, because it doesn't look as good. So you want to try to plan it with the bigger the tile, the better. So when he's just going to run his tile on down there, and the last few pieces he's going to cut. Of course he's doing the running bond brick pattern, so it'll be a couple different sizes, but it'll work out really well. And so another scenario is, let's say you have an existing deck and it's already cut to this length, and you just start your full tiles over here, and you get all the way to the end, and you end up having to cut a 2-inch piece or something. It's preferable not to do that. It doesn't look as good. So if there's a way you can plan it, even if you add a little more composite trim over here or a little more there, or whatever you can do to try to get rid of those little narrow pieces, because it just doesn't look as good. So I want to talk about waterproofing. This would be the time that if you wanted the underneath of your deck part waterproofed, that you would need to put the waterproofing membrane here, unless you're using the under deck type of waterproofing. If that's the case, you can put that on later. But if you're using either EPDM rubber or like Trex Rain Escape, you'd be doing it now. And as how that works is the rubber comes over here in larger sheets, and you would drape it down in here, but up here against the house you drape it just a little bit, and as you get further to the end you would cause the trough to run downhill, and over there you would catch it with a rain gutter. And how that gets attached and everything is a different story. We're not going to explain that right here, but you can waterproof your deck and still use DekTek on it. If you were to use Trex Rain Escape, it's rolls of plastic. You would between each joist would have 1 roll. You would attach it here, I believe, with staples. You would still trough it here, and you'd have it get deeper and deeper as it goes over there. But anyway, just letting you know that if you want to waterproof your deck, you can do that and still use DekTek Tile. The owner here does not need waterproofing, so he's not putting it in.